Hello, thank you for joining us this afternoon. I am the Mirror's royal editor, Russell Myers, and I'm joined by our resident Republican, Kevin Maguire, who has written a very spiky opinion piece today, Kevin, talking about the royal family's finances. I think the opinion piece was "Let's grow up and make the Queen Elizabeth the last. It will save us a fortune." Now, my own personal opinion is that this is based on some very shaky finances, Kevin. I think you've got to explain yourself as to why you think we should do away with the monarchy, do away with the Queen and all the pomp and pageantry, and potentially do away with all the benefits that they have to the economy, to the charities that they help out, the hundreds and thousands of patronages of people that rely on them. It isn't just as clear cut as people paying their £1.24 that they cost us last year, or paying the 74p it cost every other year, apart from doing up Buckingham Palace, which I'm sure you've got a few opinions on. But Kevin, why do you feel so strongly that we should get rid of the monarchy and make this Queen the last we ever see?
Yeah, £369 million doing up her London home may not be the best use of taxpayers' money. The shaky finances are the royal finances, as they pretend they cost us next to nothing but bring in huge amounts. They're using incredibly dodgy figures. It was lies, damn lies, and royal finance statistics, I think. And I think we should grow up as a country and be self-confident instead of being stuck in a feudal past with lots of deference, knee bending, forelock touching, all saying, aren't they great for Britain? Well, why and how are they great for Britain? The role, as we've now seen, with the National Archives documents coming out in The Guardian this week, showing that the Queen is probably Britain's most successful lobbyist, perhaps the world's most successful lobbyist, whereby she used her position to keep her wealth secret for something like 3 decades, that Prince Charles is allowed to vet in advance proposed legislation which would allow people to buy their own homes, so the Duchy of Cornwall could be exempt. Look, the royal family is all about power and wealth, and it's their power and wealth, and they try to pretend they perform a public good and put Britain on the world stage in a very, very positive way. Now they don't. They trap us in a past, and it's kind of a non-stop Disney loop in which they legitimize unearned wealth and privilege and power. That's what it's all about. And that's why I think, as a democracy, let's be a democracy. Let's elect our head of state, whoever that is, instead of just having Prince Charles because he was her first son, and then his first son, William, and then William's first son, George. And if you go back, the Queen got the job because her dad had the job. His dad got the job because his dad had the job. It's a bit of a broken line now and again, such as when Henry VII fancied the job from Richard III and had him killed in a battle and ended up under a Leicester car park. And William and Mary came in 1688 from Holland, and then we imported George I from Germany, whose first language wasn't English. It's a long line of warlords, and it's broken now and again. But in the 21st century, as a vibrant democracy, why do we bend the knee to an unelected hereditary monarch who belongs in the feudal era? That's why I want it to go, and we could save a lot of money, because that was it, £1.20 you said? The cost is way above
£1.24, and that's all it costs. And this was up markedly from the year before. It's up 41% from the year before. I think it cost around 75p in previous years. Obviously, the big chunk of change has come from this £365 million that we are paying for a 10-year renovation project for Buckingham Palace. Now, why shouldn't the Queen put her own hand in her pocket? I totally understand that point of reference. Certainly the Queen is fabulously wealthy, hundreds and hundreds of millions. I think this Guardian piece that you were referring to during the week really does touch upon the fact of the Queen's finances have always been hidden. The royal palace sort of spin on it would be certainly that the Queen is upfront about her finances, how she's funded, talking about sovereign grant money. I mean, listen, going back to these finances and about the £369 million that Republic say that they cost us each year. Now, I would say that they are shaky figures, because the sovereign grant, how the royal family is funded, is basically 15% of the money that the Treasury get from the royal family, which is that £365 million figure there or thereabouts, goes back to the royal family, and that will pay for the palaces, that will pay for the travel, that will pay for, whether they need to go here, there and everywhere on the royal business, whether it's at home and abroad. And I think that's pretty good value for money. I'm no forelock tugging royalist. You obviously, Kevin, you've got your opinions on it, but I think there are certainly a way that we can have both in everyone's life. We can have the royal family, we can have the dissidents. I think that the Republic movement is very small. I think you'll be staggered to hear. I'm sure that you'd appreciate some more voices coming forward to give a difference of opinion. And I think the way that they have evolved, Prince William leading from the front on this, making it a modern monarchy, talking about things like mental health, talking about things like cyberbullying. This week, Mirror exclusive, Prince William putting his weight behind the shocking and appalling racism in football. He's now leading a task force to do things like this. And who would be doing this if it wasn't for the royal family? Who would be the people leading the charges for those thousands of charitable all around the country? It certainly would be the politicians, Kevin, and that's
Russell, there are hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people campaigning against racism in football and wider society for better mental health. A modern monarchy is just a contradiction in terms, because it's a monarchy, it's a hereditary monarchy. He just gets his position because of the luck of the birth dice when they were rolled. He just happened to be born to who he was. Prince Charles was his father, the Queen's his grandmother. There is nothing modern about them at all. You cannot be when you have this musty old feudal institution. Yes, they say some things I will agree with now, and I'm pleased about it. Other people will be pleased about it. But look, we're just operating a scam here called royal welfare. We've got people on genuine welfare, might lose 20 quid a week universal credit that allows them to be able to eat and heat the home to some extent. But we've got hundreds of millions of pounds every year going to a family so they can go around in great style and unveil plaques to themselves, thinking the whole country stands and bows with name tags on, and that red carpets just cover the streets everywhere. Come on. We don't need any of that. If we need a head of state, okay, maybe someone to meet and greet. The Speaker of the House of Commons can do that, or we could elect someone. I don't care who it is, as long as we elect them. You might want J.K. Rowling. In the old days, you might have wanted Richard Branson. It doesn't matter, but we would choose somebody to meet and greet, and they could do it for a lot less money. And this idea, and it's a myth perpetuated that the Queen is some nice old lady who's just got the country's best interest at heart. Absolutely blown away by the leaks of the documents showing that at the end, it's all about self-interest and the preservation of her family's power and wealth and privilege. That's what it's all about. And they kind of sell it to us. It's somehow in our interest. No, it's not in our interest. I can agree with anyone.
I'm going to pull you up on it. Because
these blocked a fundamental change.
Now, the real, and we've got a few comments coming through about the fact that the royal family do bring in an awful lot of money. I'm sure you've got something to say about that, because the finances have always been unquantifiable. How can we determine how much money the royal family bring in? My guess would be they bring a lot more in because of the pomp and pageantry, and the castles and the palaces are the envy of the world. Whether you like it or not, we are the envy of the world. Wherever I go on a royal tour, there are thousands and thousands of people who take to the street. People want to see the royal family. They love the history that we are a part of. Now, going back to the charities, of course, there are huge, very incredible campaigners who are doing fantastic work, whether it's in the realms of child poverty, racism, cyberbullying, all these things. However, I would argue that when you have a royal patron, when you have someone as a figurehead, whether it's Kate or William or the Queen attaching her name to certain causes, and who? Andrew. Well, listen, who the people that actually go deal with them get a huge advantage. Just recently, baby banks in the UK, a huge issue for an awful lot of people, plunge into poverty because of austerity, because of coronavirus. The response, because of the Duchess of Cambridge's campaign to get people to donate to baby banks, get the big business to donate to baby banks, was absolutely extraordinary. And I think it put it on a lot of people's radar who would have otherwise been absolutely clueless that this is a real issue for real people. So regardless of them living in palaces, and listen, when you've got millions and millions of pounds being spent on weddings, I think we've done big stories in the past, 30 million on Harry and Meghan's wedding, £2 million on Eugenie's wedding, absolutely ludicrous figures when you look at the security. £1 million spent on the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester to redo their new home after they got kicked out to make way for Kate and William. These are figures that really do need to be reined in, but it's the real charity aspect that I think we would lose. And also the fact that we are actually the envy of the world, and you definitely wouldn't get that if you had a Tony Blair figure or a David Cameron or whoever is in that position that we would put as a president of Britain. It just simply wouldn't work.
I think with those spending figures, you probably just made my case the Republican. But I wouldn't want Tony Blair or Gordon Brown as the meter and greeter, the figurehead, the head of state. It would be up to the people to decide who they want. And there's no doubt if you're running a charity, a celebrity helps. Look at Marcus Rashford on the against hunger for poor kids campaign. Absolutely fantastic. Elton John is being really good now on get your jab against the coronavirus, helps a lot of young musicians. I don't care who it is, but you could have somebody. And if William and Kate want to earn their position by merit rather than birthright or just marrying into the family, then that's absolutely fantastic. But this whole idea that people just flock to Britain because of the royal family. France got rid of their royal family in a way I would not advocate in Britain in the 21st century. People still go to Versailles. You could still go to Windsor Castle, Bookhouse. In fact, if we had them out, you could probably rent a few rooms out, do some top end, earn a bit of money, do some
Airbnb.
And you would have all those state rooms open all the time so we can enjoy it rather than having to go by appointment and buy a very expensive ticket. So you get rid of the royal family, people will still go to Windsor, they'll still go to Sandringham, they'll still go to see Bookhouse, just as people go to Versailles in France and the Bastille area as well.
I think you're wrong there. I think you're really dumbing down our, the whole concept of why people do come to this country in their droves, in their millions come to the country when we're open for business, of course, is to see that level of history that we have, which is unmatched anywhere in the world, I would argue.
They don't come for the pubs, the sequels, the theatres. They don't come to see the football. Come on.
It's all encompassing, isn't it? And I think if you're taking a huge part of history, I think that is value for money. I'm no ardent royalist. We do the job representing our readers' views, I think, very, very well. And I think when you actually boil it down, 368 million, 9 million, it was an awful lot of money to be spending on Buckingham Palace. The argument is definitely there that the Queen should have put her hand in her own pocket. But if you take that out of the equation, and it's boiling down to a pound a year for everyone in this country to put up with the royal family for everything that they do, I think is pretty good value for money. We've got a great question here actually from Colin Jennings, which I think you've outlined. But what is the alternative? How would it work? Because if you were to get rid of the monarchy, you'd actually have to have the sovereign sign themselves out of a job themselves. So I don't know even what the whole the concept of it, how it would even get off the ground.
Yeah, Colin, I don't think it's going to happen very soon. But when Elizabeth II goes, Elizabeth the last, I'd quite like that. But let's have the discussion. Charles will be there, probably not for very long because of his age. I'm not issuing him ill, and it's not really about the individuals. It's about the system. But most other countries manage very well without monarchies because they haven't got them. Look at Ireland. They elect a president, got a poet. He goes around. He'll do all the stuff the royals do, and he will do it for a lot less. And it's democratic. You pick him. In the UK, we can have a discussion how we do it. The first commoner is the Speaker of the House of Commons. May not be a cup of tea for him to do it. He may not want to do it himself. He may not want to pop along to airports now and again and tip a hat and so on, or ride up and down the Mall in a coach. But you can have somebody, but you can get somebody a lot cheaper, and you can decide to have it rather than it just going through a bloodline, because this family is supposed to be so great and so superior. Well, of course they're not. We know that they have a lot of the problems other families have. I mentioned Prince Andrew. I was ribbing Russell there, the Duke of York, who the police in the state would like to talk to, but he's sheltered in Britain, doesn't want to talk to the police about his friendship with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, who then took his own life, and the allegations from this young woman and some other young women that they were procured for the Duke of York, Prince Andrew. So yeah, this is a family that's got some people you'd find highly questionable, and yet we just bankroll them. We bankroll them at great expense. So let's have the debate and the discussion how you replace them. Well, let's not just think they are there, a permanent fixture, and it'll never change, because history shows change comes eventually.
Well, I think some interesting questions coming forward as well about who owns Buckingham Palace. Well, it's actually owned by the state. The monarchy don't own that, but the Queen does own several other residencies. She owns Balmoral, she owns Windsor Castle. These are residencies that she would potentially keep. But what actually struck me during the week was this extraordinary story about how the Crown is going to benefit from the tune of about £900 million over the next few years because they own the seabed around the British Isles, and BP in total have bid $9 billion to have an extraordinary project to create wind farms. And I think when you start getting into things like this about the Crown owning the seabed, I'm talking myself out of a job and out of a debate here. However, but by being fair, I do think that these things do need to change, and that is what really puts people off the good work that they are doing. And I've been through this, the huge charity work, the campaigns, getting people. I know you've spoken about people talking about mental health. It's very an interesting sphere that's really come to the fore over the last few years. But I think the Royals have really had an integral part of making this part of the national daily conversation. You've had Prince Harry, Prince William, Kate, Meghan, all speaking about it. Young, vibrant royals taking it into the next generation, and I think they should be applauded for that. But once we get rid of the sort of the archaic rules, potentially the pomp and pageantry, and if you don't like that, maybe that can be scaled down. However, these things do not do them any good at all. 900 million out of a £9 billion deal. Surely that money should be going to the Treasury. We've got a massive, massive black hole in the finances at the moment because of coronavirus. And maybe it's time for the royal family to cut a deal with the Treasury. They probably think that they do that already. As I mentioned, the sovereign grant of how they actually exist still costs an awful lot of money. I think the figure was around about £85 million last year. But that is only 15% of the money that the Treasury gets. Again, about 350 million quid. The finances are always going to be there to be debated, and that's something that some of it is still shrouded in secrecy. It was, I think, we're in a different generation now to when sort of the 80s, well, and way before then, the Queen decided to pay tax herself in 1992. However, the Guardian piece this week still alludes to the fact that her finances and the way that her money is managed is still shrouded in secrecy. So maybe there will be a movement to take down the cloak, the veil of secrecy, to give it a bit more transparency. And that is probably one way that it could become a bit more palatable to people like you, Kevin.
Yeah, well, Russell, look, you're a royalist, and I accept you're not uncritical, as many people aren't who support the royal family. I'm a Republican, and I will not deny that they do some things that I think are positive. You mentioned mental health, but if we just take that £85 million sovereign grant payment, which other family in Great Britain and Northern Ireland and the United Kingdom costs us that amount? I mean, that is just obscene welfare for a family. Nobody else gets that. And Buckingham Palace must be the most expensive council house in the.
Well, we plans to Airbnb it, Kevin.
there's no doubt if you've got a council house in Blaydon or Birmingham or anywhere like that, you're not going to be able to do a swap with the Queen and Buckingham Palace and get on a list and move in. I mean, it's utterly ludicrous. I just find it fundamentally wrong and offensive when so many people are struggling. So much is lavished on one family who have I think a very misguided sense of their own self-entitlement and privilege. They can just keep up this scam, this racket continuing, and they hate scrutiny. And I think you're right. The Republican movement in this country is small, but one of the reasons it's small is you put on the TV news, the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, Sky, possibly even Grid, GB News when it starts. And the coverage is pretty deferential, isn't it? Here we are, Prince Charles, look at him, noble chap, unveiling another...
Let me just interject there for a minute. And we're talking about the deference and the way that the media does cover them. I mean, I think we do a pretty good job of holding them to account. We do, cover their tours and their stuff very well. However, we do give them a bit of stick when it's needed. But did no emotion stir within you when you heard the Queen talking about we will meet again, we will be with our friends again during the coronavirus crisis? The country was actually screaming out for the Queen to speak at the time. When we hark back to those dark days of last spring, summer, when the country was in a right mess with coronavirus, people were wondering whether this disease was going to, really make a huge historical difference, as it has for the country and indeed the world. And I think that the country was calling out for the Queen to speak. And when she eventually did speak, 27 million people watched that live, countless other millions on social media platforms across the world. And I think that really is a huge indication of how important the Queen and the royal family still are. Maybe that will change when the Queen does eventually either step down or pass away to Charles. Maybe it would be a very, very different monarchy. But I still think there are millions and millions of people who hold her in such high regard and were really settled from the Queen speaking out at that time.
Oh, look, Russell, a few times I thought you might be dragged off to the Tower, particularly when you worked out the security cost that we were paying for the wedding of Harry Windsor and Meghan Markle before they decided to go off and make lots of money in the US. Or I read stuff by your colleague Ryan Necker in the Sunday Times, or even stuff in the Daily Mail. It can be really quite hard hitting. So I agree, not all coverage is just deferential, but if you watch TV, it is normally somebody, they're smiling, there's a crowd around them. If you took a bigger shot, you'd probably find there's a small crowd. And it just made to look very busy. But I watched that broadcast by the Queen, and I think she reads an auto cue very well and does it with a lot of meaning. Whoever wrote it for her, but did that really get me thinking? Yeah, I'm going to now beat the virus and endure 12 weeks of lockdown. No, it didn't actually.
Oh, Kevin, you must be made of stone, because I will challenge most people not to have some emotion stirred in them. Not only that speech, but certainly the Christmas speech as well. And this is something that the whole country does not necessarily stop at 3 p.m. and watch it.
No, it doesn't.
If you watch that, I would. The emotion was stirred in an awful lot of people, and I think that to not realise the significance of the Queen still speaking is to misjudge the public mood somewhat.
If you're looking for somebody who symbolised and brought the country together last year during the pandemic, sorry Betty, it wasn't you. It was Tom Moore, Captain Tom. I think he did it, and he came from nowhere. Now, of course, I'll admit he was a royalist and was thrilled to be knighted by the Queen, and I was very happy for him because of that. But I think it was somebody, and I use this phrase in a very, very positive way. It was a commoner who came through. I don't think it was her, just by dint she'd been around a long time and could read the auto cue. It was him decided to walk up and down and raise £1,000 for the NHS, or the NHS charities. Which got nearly 400 million quid all told once you looked at tax that was given. But I think it was him now. I mean, the Queen's speech on Christmas, it's almost become a joke, hasn't it?
No, I totally disagree. And I think that this one was quite different. I mean, listen, I think you're being quite unfair about reading an auto cue. She's probably got better eyes than me at this stage of being able to still read an auto cue. But she does read it. Of course, she has some help with her private advisors trying to strike the right tone. I think that was very important in this year more than most. And certainly, though, that enduring image of the Queen and Captain Tom will be something that will live long in the memory. That image there is really a signal of a significant photo of the year that we have endured. And as Captain Tom, tomorrow will be a better day. I think we'll leave it there because it's been a lively one, Kevin. I think we could talk about this all day. There's lots of fors and against. Thank you so much for your comments and joining us. I'm sure Kevin and I will be up for taking up the mantle once again, and do join us next time.
I'll see you in the tower.